Welcome to African Mafia Stories, where loyalty is currency, power has a price, and every city hides a secret. Today's story is based in South Africa. Enjoy.
The first time I met her, she took my wallet. The second time, she made sure I noticed. That was the beginning of everything going wrong. Or maybe, everything becoming exactly what it was always going to be. My name is Teto Ndlovu. And this is the story of the woman Johannesburg never talks about out loud. But everyone adjusts for. Zinhle. It was maddening. Late enough that people stopped pretending they had somewhere else to be. The streets were alive in that dangerous, careless way the city uses to hide what it really is. Music. Laughter. Money moving between hands. And people like me, pretending we understood the rules. I stepped outside to take a call. Routine. Predictable. That's what made it easy. She brushed past me. Soft contact. Precise. The kind you only notice after it matters. I didn't realize until minutes later. Hand to pocket. Empty. I turned. She was 10 meters away. Leaning under a street light like she had nowhere else to be. Flipping through my wallet. When she looked up, she didn't run. She smiled. Relax, she said. You look like someone who can afford mistakes. I walked toward her. Slow. Measured. Give it back, I said. She tilted her head. Studying me like I had just said something interesting. Then she handed it over. Everything. That should have ended it. It didn't. You haven't eaten, she said. That threw me. More than the theft. I'm fine. You're not, she said. Come. I should have left. Instead. I followed her. The place was loud. Warm. Crowded enough that no one paid attention. She ordered without asking. You always do that? I asked. Decide things for people. She looked at me. Direct. Unblinking. Only when they don't know what they need, she said. That should have irritated me. It didn't. It stayed with me. Why give the wallet back? I asked. She leaned back slightly. Because you noticed, she said. Most people don't. And what does that mean? She smiled. Slow. It means you're either careful, or you're about to be in trouble. That was the moment it shifted. Not attraction. Not yet. Awareness. Of her. Of the space around her. Of the way people moved differently when she did. Who are you? I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Then, I fixed things, she said. I saw her again 2 nights later. Then again after that. And after that. Not planned. Not exactly. Johannesburg is not a city that gives you the same person by accident. Not unless one of you is being deliberate. I started noticing things. The kind of things you miss until someone teaches your eyes how to work. People gave her space. Not openly. Just enough. Men who acted important when quiet around her. Women who had survived things looked at her with recognition. Bouncers opened doors before she reached them. And once. A man I knew for a fact had sent 2 people to hospital with his temper lowered his eyes when she passed him. That was when I understood she wasn't just moving through the city. The city was moving around her. I found her on a rooftop bar in Braamfontein the next week. No invitation. No message. Just instinct. She was standing near the edge, city lights spread below us like someone had broken a necklace and left the pieces shining. She didn't turn when I walked up beside her. You keep doing that, I said. What? Acting like you knew I was coming. She lifted one shoulder. You're easy to predict. That annoyed me more than it should have. You don't know me that well. Now she turned. The lights from the city cut across her face in pieces. Soft here. Sharp there. No, she said. But I know your type. And what type is that? The kind that thinks control is the same thing as safety. That landed harder than I liked. Because it wasn't wrong. I had built my life around controlled risks. Predictable outcomes. Numbers I could trust. Zinhle felt like the exact opposite of that. Which was probably why I kept coming back. That night, she told me almost nothing. Which, strangely, was more than before. She said she grew up in KZN. That she hated men who wore too much cologne. That she trusted women with tired eyes. And that she never stayed anywhere she couldn't leave quickly. Why? I asked. She looked back out at the city. Because staying still makes you measurable. That was not the kind of sentence people invent. That was lived language. The first time she touched me. Really touched me. It wasn't romantic. We were crossing Commissioner Street. I stepped off the curb. And she grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt. A dark sedan shot through the intersection a second later. Too fast. Too deliberate. She didn't let go right away. Her fingers stayed wrapped around my arm. Tight. Warm. That wasn't random, she said. For the first time since meeting her. I believed I was actually in danger. Must we go? I asked. She finally let go. And something about her face changed. Not fear. Recognition. Yes, she said. That was the first time she gave me his name without me dragging it out of her. Which meant it mattered now. What is he? I asked. She laughed once. No warmth in it. You keep asking the wrong question. Then give me the right one. Now she looked at me fully. Ask what he wants. I didn't answer. So she did. Routes, she said. Silence. People who don't hesitate. Then she paused. And he wants me gone. That was the first time I realized I wasn't the center of the problem. I was just a part of it he could reach. We walked for a while after that. No destination. Just movement. What did you do to him? I asked finally. She smiled again. Smaller this time. Less dangerous. Almost said. Nothing he didn't deserve, she said. That answer should have frightened me. It mostly made me want the rest of the story. You always speak in pieces, I asked. Only with people who still have the option of leaving. I stopped walking. She took 2 steps before she realized and turned back. What if I don't? I said. The city moved around us. Cars. Music. A distant siren that belonged to someone else's disaster. She held my gaze. Long enough that it stopped feeling like conversation. Then don't, she said. That was not permission. That was the beginning of something worse. That night she stayed at my place. Not because either of us said it plainly. Because walking away felt less honest than staying. We didn't sleep together. Not that night. She sat on the floor with her back against the couch, shoes off, knife within reach. I sat beside her after a while. Close enough to matter. Far enough not to demand anything. You really don't stay still, I said. She looked at the dark window. Not if I can help it. Why? For a second, I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, because when I was 14, she said, my mother was in the same place for too long. Her voice didn't change. That made it worse. He came back, she said. The man everyone said had left for good. I didn't interrupt. Some stories punish interruption. He took what he thought was his, she said. And after that, my mother was alive, but she wasn't with me anymore. The apartment went quiet. Not empty. Heavy. So you learned to leave first, I said. She gave the smallest nod. That was the first lesson. And the others. Now she looked at me. Tired. Open in a way I hadn't seen before. That men confuse access with permission. That money makes cowards brave. And that if you wait for someone to save you, you'll die before they arrive. I reached for her then. Slow enough for her to stop me. She didn't. My hand found hers on the floor between us. She looked down at it. Like she wasn't used to people touching her without taking something. That was the first real thing between us. Not lust. Not intrigue. Recognition. The kind that ruins easier lives. The next morning, she was gone before I woke. No note. No message. Just absence. That should have surprised me. It didn't. People like Zinhle didn't wake up gently into mornings. They returned to movement. But by midday, there was a message. No greeting. Just an address. And one line. Come alone if you're going to be stubborn. The place was an old auto yard in Jepstown. Half abandoned. Half useful. The kind of place the city forgets while still feeding it power. She was standing between two stripped shells of cars when I arrived. Dark shirt. Hair tied back. No softness left from the night before. For a second, I hated that. Not because she owed me warmth. Because I had liked seeing it. You came, she said. You expected me to. One side of her mouth moved. Barely. I expected your ego to, she said. That made me laugh, which annoyed me because I was trying to be offended. She noticed. Of course she did. Then she handed me a photograph. Not glossy. Not recent. Just old enough to matter. 3 people. A younger Zinhle. A boy maybe a year older than her. And a man in his 20s, smiling with the kind of confidence poor men wear when they're beautiful enough to mistake it for protection. Your brother? I asked, nodding at the boy. She shook her head. My cousin. Then she tapped the man in the photo. And that is Mosligo. I looked up at her. Then back at the photograph. He knew you before all this. She gave a dry laugh with no humor in it. Before all this, she said, there wasn't an all this. She moved toward the far wall of the yard and I followed. Not because she asked. Because I knew this was the part she didn't tell people. Mosligo grew up 2 streets from me, she said. He was older. Smarter. Angry in a way people call ambition because he wore it well. She stopped beside a rusted frame and leaned one hand against it. Not for support. For anchoring. When my mother stopped being present, she said, I learned how to take from men who took first. Mosligo saw that. He said I had instincts. The way she said it made the word sound rotten. He taught me how to watch hands, she said. How to read lies before the mouth catches up. How to disappear before someone decides they own your future. I stayed quiet. The story was doing something ugly in my chest. You loved him, I said before I could stop myself. She didn't answer immediately. That was answer enough. I was 17, she said at last. He was the first person who looked at me like I was dangerous instead of damaged. That line sat between us like broken glass. Because I understood it too well. What happened? I asked. Now she looked at me directly. No distance left. No performance either. He wanted more, she said. Not money. Not territory. Obedience. He liked the city because it could be broken into systems. Routes. Clubs. Deliveries. Men who did what they were told. She exhaled slowly. And he thought I would stay useful forever. That was when I saw it fully. This wasn't just rivalry. This was intimacy turned hostile. He hit my cousin first, she said. For stealing. Then her mouth tightened. Only my cousin hadn't stolen anything. I felt my jaw clench. She went on anyway. He needed someone blamed. Someone to make the others obedient. My cousin couldn't walk properly for a month. And when I confronted him, he told me pain was how people learned their place. The old yard seemed too small for the silence after that. The city noise beyond the wall sounded very far away. So you left, I said. I tried. That made me look up sharply. She nodded once. He doesn't let people leave cleanly. There are certain sentences that explain entire lives if you're paying attention. That was one of them. What did he do? I asked. She looked away. Past me. Past the wall. Past now. He followed me to Durban, she said. He found the room I was renting. And he told me if I ever made him look weak again, he would make sure I survived it. I didn't speak. There was nothing decent to say to that. When I came back to Johannesburg, she said, I stopped being afraid of him. I looked at her. That's not true. For the first time that day, she smiled properly. Tired. Sharp. A little impressed. No, she said. It isn't. Then she stepped closer. Not enough to touch. Enough to matter. I'm afraid of what he does with time, she said. What does that mean? It means if he can't own a thing, she said, he waits until it gets lonely enough to return. That line stayed with me all day. And all night. Because by then I knew two things. First, she had never really been free of him. Second, I was already too close to walk out cleanly. That night we met at my place again. No message this time. She just showed up. I opened the door. She looked exhausted. Not physically. Structurally. Like holding herself together had become work. Bad day? I asked. She looked at me for a second. Then passed me into the apartment. Let me in, she said. So I did. We stood in the kitchen for a while. No music. No city noise loud enough to rescue us from honesty. Then she said, you should leave Johannesburg. I should have laughed. Instead, I asked, do you want me to? That got her attention. A real reaction. No, she said. Too quickly. Then she looked away and corrected herself. I want you alive. That did something to me I wasn't prepared for. Because it wasn't dramatic. It was honest. I stepped toward her. Slow. Not to corner her. To give her time to stop me. She didn't. You keep talking like I'm temporary, I said quietly. And you keep staying like you're not, she answered. That was the closest thing we had said to the truth between us. Until then. I touched her face. This time she leaned into it. Just enough to undo me. When I kissed her, she held still for one heartbeat. Then the stillness broke. It wasn't careful. It wasn't cautious. It felt like hunger and relief deciding to stop pretending they were different. When we pulled apart, she kept her forehead against mine. Eyes closed. This is a mistake, she said. Probably, I said. Now she opened her eyes. And for once, she looked uncertain. That was more intimate than the kiss. The first thing that changed was the silence. Not the city. Johannesburg doesn't know how to be quiet. But the spaces around us did. Calls that should have been returned weren't. Deliveries delayed without explanation. Men who usually met my eyes suddenly found reasons not to. I noticed it before I admitted it. Zinhle noticed it before I did. You need to slow your routes, she said one evening. We were sitting on my couch, the lights off, the city bleeding in through the windows. Why? I asked. She didn't look at me. Because he's mapping you. That word sat wrong. Careful. Clinical. I'm not running anything worth that level of attention, I said. Now she turned. This isn't about your business anymore, she said. It's about proximity. I held her gaze. You. She didn't deny it. That's why I told you to leave, she said. And that's why you're still here, I replied. Something in her expression shifted. Not softness. Something closer to frustration. You don't understand how he works, she said. Then explain it. She stood up. Started pacing. He doesn't rush, she said. He removes options. People stop answering you. Then people stop helping you. Then people stop seeing you. And then. She stopped pacing. Looked at me. Then he decides how you disappear. The room felt smaller after that. I stood up. Walked toward her. You've dealt with him before, I said. This isn't new. That's exactly why it matters, she said. You don't survive someone like that twice. I reached for her. She caught my wrist. Not aggressive. Just fast. Stop doing that, she said. Doing what? Acting like this is something you can solve by getting closer. I held her wrist now. Not letting go. Maybe I'm not trying to solve it, I said. That got her attention. Then what are you doing? I didn't look away. Staying. She let out a slow breath. You don't get to make that decision lightly, she said. I'm not making it lightly, I answered. Something in her broke then. Not loudly. She stepped into me. Forehead against my chest. Just for a second. Like she was measuring how long she could afford to stay there. Then she pulled back. Then you listen to me, she said. For once, you don't argue. I'm listening. You change your routes. You don't answer unknown numbers. You don't meet anyone alone. And you? That question hung there. I'll handle him, she said. No, I said immediately. Her eyes sharpened. This is not something you negotiate into being equal, she said. Then don't make it something you carry alone. That hit something. Because for the first time, she didn't have an immediate answer. That's when her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen once. Then again. Nothing dramatic changed in her face. That was how I knew it was bad. Who is it? I asked. She locked the screen. No one you need to meet. I stared at her. She was already reaching for her jacket. Zinhle. That made her pause. Only for a second. If I tell you to stay inside tonight, she said, you do it. That's not an answer. No, she said. It's a chance. She crossed the room, stopped in front of me, and for one strange second looked like she was trying to memorize something. My face, maybe. Or the fact that I was still here. Then she kissed me. Not slowly. Not for comfort. Like a decision made too fast to survive doubt. When she pulled away, she said, don't make me regret staying. Then she left. That should have been the moment I listened. It wasn't. I gave it 20 minutes. Then I started calling people I should not have known. A driver. A loader. A man who ran a panel shop and asked too few questions for honest reasons. Everyone gave me the same answer in different words. Nothing. Nobody had seen her. Nobody knew anything. That was when I understood the city had gone quiet on purpose. At midnight, I got a call. Block number. I answered anyway. A man's voice said, you should have taken the chance. Then the line went dead. I didn't sleep. I packed a bag I had no real plan for. Checked the locks twice. Opened the curtains just enough to watch the street. At 3:17 in the morning, the building generator cut out. Everything went black. I was already moving before I heard the corridor door. That wasn't instinct. That was fear finally learning discipline. I grabbed the heaviest thing within reach. A lamp. Terrible weapon. Excellent statement. The first man through the doorway got it across the side of the head. The lamp broke. He didn't go down. He stumbled, cursed, then came harder. The second one hit me in the stomach before I could reset. No warning. Just force. Air disappeared. The room tilted. I swung anyway. Caught one of them in the throat with my forearm. Not enough. Never enough. The first man recovered and drove me into the kitchen counter. Pain burst white across my back. Something cracked. Plate. Bone. Dignity. Hard to say. I reached for the broken glass from the lamp base. The second man saw it. His boot came down on my wrist. That pain was clean. Bright. Immediate. Then a voice from the doorway said, not his hands. Everything stopped. The man stepped back just enough. And he came in. Mosigo did not look like a ghost from any past. He looked very alive. And very certain. He was taller than I expected. Well dressed in the kind of dark clothes that absorb attention instead of asking for it. Nothing theatrical. Which somehow made him worse. He looked around my apartment once, almost politely. Then at me. You're disappointing, he said. I coughed out a laugh I did not feel. You broke into my place to critique me. One corner of his mouth moved. You were supposed to leave the city, he said. That told me two things instantly. He knew what she had said to me. And he wanted me to know he knew. Where is she? I asked. That made him smile properly for the first time. Not warmly. Like a man amused by ownership. She was never yours to ask for, he said. He crouched in front of me. Not close enough to touch. Close enough to dominate the air. She was smarter before you, he said. She was harder. Cleaner. Then his eyes sharpened. You make her sentimental. That was the first time I saw the whole shape of it. This wasn't just revenge. It was injury. The kind rooted in possession. You don't want me, I said. You want her to watch. That landed. His face didn't change much. But men like him don't need much. She used to understand what survival required, he said. Then he stood. Take him. They didn't tape my mouth. Didn't need to. A strike to the ribs at the right angle can make a man obedient in very practical ways. The drive felt longer than it was. Every turn wrong. Every silence deliberate. When they dragged me out, it was into a warehouse district south of the inner city. Not abandoned. That would have been easier. Operational. Used. The kind of place where harm leaves paperwork. They tied me to a steel chair in a room above the floor. Glass office walls. View over crates and loading lanes. Mosigo came in 10 minutes later carrying tea. That, more than the kidnapping, made him feel unwell in the soul. You know what she never understood, he asked. I said nothing. He seemed pleased by that. She thinks survival is about escaping men, he said. It isn't. It's about learning which men to stand behind. I looked at him then. Really looked. And finally saw what she had seen too late. Not strength. Just appetite dressed like certainty. She left you, I said. That hit deeper than I expected. His mouth flattened. The room lost 5 degrees. No, he said. She forgot who made her useful. That was when I knew she was coming. Not because anyone said so. Because men like Mosigo only explain themselves when they think the ending is guaranteed. The first sign was not noise. That would have been easier. It was absence. One of the men outside the office stopped moving past the glass. Then the second. Mosigo noticed. His head tilted slightly. Not fear. Adjustment. He put the cup down carefully. That was somehow worse than panic would have been. Then the warehouse lights dipped once. Not off. Just enough to tell the room something had changed. Mosigo smiled. Small. Private. She came, he said. Below us, somewhere on the warehouse floor, something heavy hit concrete. Then a shout. Then another. Not chaos. Controlled collapse. Mosigo turned to the door and drew his gun. The motion was smooth. Practiced. He glanced at me without looking long enough to acknowledge me fully. Watch carefully, he said. This is what happens when people confuse attachment with strength. The office door opened. Not kicked in. Not exploded inward. Opened. One of his men stumbled through it backward. Hard. Fast. Then dropped out of frame. And she stepped in. Dark clothes. Hair pulled back. No wasted movement. I had seen her dangerous before. This was different. There was no performance left in her. No teasing edge. No deliberate mystery. She looked like purpose given a body. Her eyes flicked to me first. 1 second. Enough to check I was alive. Enough to change the whole room. Then she looked at Mosigo. And the temperature seemed to drop. You should have left him out of it, she said. Mosigo sighed almost fondly. You always mistake interference for loyalty. She took 1 step into the office. No weapon visible. That did not make her less armed. He's not yours, she said. Mosigo's smile shifted. Less amused now. More exposed. Neither were you, he said. That landed. Not because it was true. Because once, a long time ago, she had almost believed it. The silence between them was its own history. Old. Sharp-edged. Intimate in all the wrong ways. You should have stayed useful, Mosigo said. That made her smile. Not warmly. The way people smile when something old finally stops hurting. You confuse fear with use, she said. You always did. The man behind her moved first. Not Mosigo. One of his last cards, coming in fast from the right, thinking surprise still belonged to him. She turned before he got close. Not fully. Just enough. He reached for her shoulder. She stepped inside the line of his arm. Close. Too close for his size to help him. She drove her elbow up under his jaw. Hard. His head snapped back. Air and balance gone at once. Before he hit the ground, she had already moved past him. Toward me. Mosigo fired. The shot took glass from the wall beside her head. She dropped low behind the overturned guard. Then everything lost shape. Sound first. Then movement. Then choices. Two more men hit the doorway. One went down outside before he got fully in. One made it to the desk and started shooting blind through splintering wood. I threw my chair sideways. Steel legs screeching over concrete. Not useful as an escape. Useful as distraction. The man by the desk glanced toward me. She used that. 3 fast steps. A hand to his wrist. Turn. Momentum stolen. The gun discharged into the ceiling. Then not again. He folded in a way human bodies aren't meant to when certainty leaves them too quickly. She took the gun before he hit the floor. Mosigo was already moving. He didn't waste time on anger. That was one of the things that made him dangerous. He came straight at her across the office. No gun now. Just body weight and speed and old familiarity with how she moved. He knew her habits. She knew his. That made it uglier. He hit her before she could reset. Not a clean strike. A driving shoulder through her middle that sent both of them into the side table. Wood cracked. Glass burst. For a second I lost her in the wreckage. Then she came up hard, one hand in his shirt, the other driving the gun wrist away from both of them. He hit her across the face. Flat palm. Not because it was the best move. Because it was personal. That changed her. I saw it happen. Whatever line she had been holding inside herself snapped. She didn't back away. Didn't reset. She went closer. That was the part Mosigo hadn't expected. Men like him depend on distance. On fear creating room. She took the room away. Knee to the thigh. Forehead into his mouth. A short brutal strike into the damaged ribs he'd exposed when he twisted. Not elegant. Not cinematic. Real. He staggered once. That was enough. I shoved the broken chair frame with both feet toward them. Clumsy. Ugly. It clipped his ankle. He lost balance for half a second. She used all of it. Drove him backward into the glass wall. Once. Twice. The third time it gave. They crashed through the partition into the outer corridor in a rain of safety glass. My ears rang. The warehouse below had gone strangely quiet. That was the worst part. Quiet means the fight has become specific. By the time I got one hand free on the broken bolt edge, they were up again. Mosigo had blood in his mouth. She had glass in her forearm. Neither of them seemed to notice. He looked at her with something like disbelief. You'd throw everything away for him. She looked almost calm again. That frightened me more than rage had. No, she said. Then she took one step closer. I'm finally choosing where to spend it. That broke something in him. Not his body. His control. He came at her wrong after that. Too much force. Too much anger. Not enough thinking. She slipped the first grab. Took his arm. Turned under it. And drove him down over the corridor rail with all the precision he had once taught her. He caught himself before going over. One hand clinging to metal. The other reaching for her. For one terrible second, it looked like history might pull them both down. Then she stepped back. Not out of pity. Out of finality. He hauled himself up enough to kneel, coughing and broken through the mouth. Still trying to shape the room with his voice. You'll regret this, he said. She stared at him, breathing hard, blood on her arm, glass in her hair, face already swelling where he had hit her. No, she said. Then quieter, I regret how long it took. The men below were moving now. Not his. Hers. The building had changed hands while we were all busy bleeding. She came back into the office and dropped to one knee in front of me. Her hands went straight to the ties. Fast. Efficient. Then she stopped. Looked at the bruise already rising along my jaw. At the way I was holding my side. At my wrist. Her expression changed. Not anger. Something worse. She hit you? I asked. That almost made her laugh. I was still not breathing quite right. He did what he always does, she said. Then she cut the last tie. I stood too fast. The room tilted. My knees tried to negotiate with gravity. She caught me before I hit the floor. One arm around my waist. The other braced on my shoulder. For a second we just stayed there. Breathing each other's air. Alive. You're late, I said. She stared at me. Then grabbed my face hard with one hand. Not gentle. Not cruel either. Like she needed proof. You're alive, she said. Her voice cracked on the second word. That frightened me more than the whole fight had. Because I had never heard her lose control like that. She pulled me into her then. Hard. No hesitation left. I felt her shaking. Just slightly. Enough to tell the truth. We need to go, she said into my shoulder. I nodded. But neither of us moved first. By the time we left the warehouse, dawn was beginning to thin the edges of the city. Johannesburg looked almost innocent from a distance. That is one of its better tricks. She drove. One hand on the wheel. The other flexing every few seconds around the bruising in her forearm. I sat angled toward the window, trying not to breathe deep enough for my ribs to protest. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Not because there was nothing to say. Because everything worth saying had just become heavier. She took us to a flat I had never seen before. Top floor. No doorman. No name on the lease box downstairs. Just another place she had carved out between systems. Inside, the apartment was quieter than hers. Cleaner too. Like this was a place meant for recovery, not living. She locked the door behind us. Checked the windows. Checked them again. Only then did she turn back to me. Sit, she said. It came out rougher than she meant it to. I obeyed anyway. She disappeared into the bathroom and came back with a first aid box, gauze, antiseptic, and a basin of water. The whole arrangement looked painfully domestic. Which made it feel more intimate than the kiss had. She knelt in front of me. Not gracefully. Not ceremonially. Like someone too tired to pretend this was anything except necessary. When the antiseptic hit the split skin near my cheek, I flinched. She stopped immediately. Her eyes lifted to mine. Sorry, she said. It was such a strange thing to hear from her that I almost smiled. You apologize? I said. That earned me a look. A tired one, but still sharp. Not often, she said. Enjoy it while it lasts. That was the first moment either of us came back to ourselves. Only a little. Enough to breathe. She cleaned the bruises on my face, then moved to my wrist. When her fingers touched the swelling, I hissed through my teeth. Her jaw tightened. He shouldn't have touched you, she said. The words were quiet. Which made them far more dangerous than shouting. I looked at her bruised cheek. The cut near her hairline. The blood dried into the sleeve of her shirt. You want to talk? She sat back on her heels. For the first time since the warehouse, she looked something close to ashamed. I told you to stay out of it, she said. You mean after kissing me and leaving me with a warning vague enough to be decorative? That almost made her laugh. Almost. Instead, she rubbed one hand over her face and looked away. I'm not good at this part. What part? Her eyes came back to me. Unarmed now. That was somehow worse. The part where someone matters, she said. The room went very still. There are sentences that change the architecture of a life. That was one of them. I didn't answer immediately. Not because I didn't know what to say. Because I knew once I said it, it would stay true. You matter too, I said. That hit her harder than the fight had. I could see it. The way her throat moved. The way she looked down at her own hands like they belonged to someone she was still deciding whether to trust. Mosigo is not finished, she said at last. That was how she handled emotion. Convert it into logistics. I know, I said. He's wounded. Not gone. She nodded once. Wounded men like him are worse. I know that too. That seemed to surprise her. Not because I said it. Because I meant it calmly. I was scared, I admitted. In the apartment. In the car. In that chair. I swallowed. But not of him. Now she looked at me very carefully. Then what? That I'd mattered just enough to get hurt, I said. And not enough to be worth coming for. She closed her eyes. Only for a second. When she opened them again, there was no distance left in them. I came, she said. Simple. Unadorned. Devastating. Yes, I said. You did. Neither of us moved for a while after that. The city outside brightened in slow layers. Morning traffic. Birds on the ledge. The small humiliations of normal life resuming after extraordinary violence. Then her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, frowned, and answered. She listened for maybe 10 seconds. Said nothing. Hung up. What is it? I asked. She put the phone down on the table. Masego's gone. I felt my body tense automatically. She saw it. Not escaped, she said. Gone. That meant exactly what it sounded like. Not arrest. Not recovery. Removal. I studied her face. She didn't look relieved. She looked emptied. He's dead, I said. Not a question. She nodded once. Then sat down across from me as if the strength had finally gone out of her knees. I should feel something cleaner than this, she said. But I don't. I understood that. Endings are rarely neat for the people who survive them. You don't owe him clean grief, I said. That isn't what this is. She looked up. Waiting. You spent years surviving a version of yourself he helped create, I said. That doesn't disappear just because he does. That reached her. Not dramatically. Just enough that I saw her stop fighting the truth of it. What happens now? She asked. It was the first truly open question she had ever given me. I smiled despite the pain in my face. You're asking me? One side of her mouth moved. Barely. You have very few redeeming qualities, she said. But occasionally you say something useful. There she is, I said. That earned me a real laugh. Small. Unexpected. More intimate than anything else in the room. Then she stood, crossed to where I was sitting, and lowered herself onto the edge of the couch beside me. Not on the other side. Beside. Her shoulder touched mine. Lightly. Deliberately. I don't know how to do this part, she said. Again. I turned toward her. What part? She met my eyes. Staying. That landed harder than any grand declaration could have. Because with Zinhle, staying was never casual. It was confession. You don't have to know all of it now, I said. You just have to mean the next hour. Now she was the one smiling. Tired. A little incredulous. That is a very modest kind of romance, she said. I'm injured, I said. I'm pacing myself. That made her laugh again. Then she kissed me. This time differently. Not like someone grabbing what might disappear. Like someone trying to believe it could stay. Months later, people in the city still spoke her name carefully. Some stopped speaking it at all. Routes changed. Alliances turned out. Men who had depended on Mosigo discovered that fear is not the same thing as structure. And Zinhle. She did not soften. That is not how people like her heal. They don't become harmless. But she stopped moving like every room was temporary. She started leaving things behind on purpose. A shirt. A toothbrush. A book she claimed not to like but reread anyway. One evening, standing on the balcony outside my apartment, she looked down at the city and said, "It feels different now." How? She thought about it. Then said, "Less like something I'm escaping." I looked at her profile in the city light. At the woman who had once moved like staying still could kill her. And more like. I asked. Now she turned. Not smiling. Not guarded either. Like something I chose, she said. If you ask me now what Zinhle is, I won't say she owns the night. That isn't true. The night tried to break her long before I met her. What she learned instead was how to survive it without becoming soft enough to be consumed. And that is far more dangerous. Some people change your life. Zinhle changed the terms of mine. Because once you've been loved by someone who learned the world through force and still chose tenderness anyway, you stop mistaking softness for the only form of love. That was how she stopped being the woman who owned the night. And became the woman who finally chose something after surviving it. Me. The city. A life she had never once believed would hold still long enough to become hers. And if that doesn't sound like romance, then you haven't understood a word of the story. Because with women like Zinhle, staying is the love story. Everything else is just the sound of the city learning how to live around it.
Thank you for listening. Tell me, which African country would you like the next Mafia story to be based in and why? Drop your answers in the comments and I will take it from there. If you enjoyed the story, like, share, subscribe. Because somewhere in Africa, another story is already unfolding.